Smartwatches are great. You're able to extend your phone's functionality and track health metrics like your steps, your heart rate, and your sleep. But sometimes the paywall to get a device like this is a little bit higher than what most can afford. And even if you can afford it, it may seem like a little bit of an unnecessary purchase. Enter the Fitbit Versa 2, a $150 smartwatch and fitness tracker that has the basics of what you would get on a higher end product without the premium price tag that comes with a new Apple Watch or Galaxy Watch. Let's take a look. Welcome to Top Spec, and if you're new around here, we are your one-stop shop for tech content, so if that sounds like your thing, feel free to join us by pressing that big red subscribe button down below. So I've been using the Fitbit Versa 2 for just over half a year now for both the smartwatch and the fitness tracker capabilities, and there's a lot to cover, starting off with the display and the build quality. The Fitbit Versa 2 features a 1.4-inch 300 by 300 AMOLED display with peak brightness of 1000 nits. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with AMOLED displays, black pixels are essentially turned off in order to get the deepest blacks possible and best contrast in the UI. Compared to LCD screens where every single pixel is constantly backlit and constantly on. Even if you're looking at a completely black screen or if your OS is in a dark mode, all of those dark pixels are still enabled. So with an AMOLED display, not only does this save battery by having certain black pixels turned off, but it also adds a lot of contrast to UI and different images that you might be looking at on your phone. And colors appear a lot more vibrant with that super deep black to contrast them. So with all that out of the way, on top of that 1.4-inch AMOLED display is a layer of Gorilla Glass to protect the screen from scratching and cracking. And speaking of durability, let's move on to the build quality. So although over time my Versa 2 has accumulated a few dents and scratches, the build quality has held up extremely well. So despite the watch being more inexpensively priced, Fitbit definitely did not cheap out on the build of this watch. It feels a lot more premium, and it does feel slightly rugged, even though it's not one of those big clunky rugged watches. I've ended up biking in torrential rain a few times with this watch, and every time that that's happened, the watch has survived completely unscathed. The Versa 2 is rated to be swim-proof up to 50 meters of water, so it's basically completely waterproof. And there's even an exercise option in the exercise menu on the watch for swimming. So Fitbit is openly suggesting wearing this watch while swimming. They're clearly very confident with the waterproof technology built into this watch. However, Fitbit does state on their website that they do not recommend repeatedly wearing the watch in the shower, as soaps and shampoo can cause long-term damage if they get into the internals. As for durability, being a recreational cyclist, I have taken a few tumbles on my bike while wearing this watch, which is probably where I got those few scratches from. And like I said before, the watch has survived completely unscathed. I've slammed this into walls before, into like corners, and the screen has been completely fine. The only scratches on the watch are on the actual body, not even on the screen. So that Gorilla Glass screen has really stood up incredibly well, and I even know people with some higher end watches that have hit it against a countertop or something and the entire thing just cracks. So if you're looking for a smartwatch that has a plethora of fitness capabilities and you want something that's somewhat rugged but it doesn't have the look of one of those rugged smartwatches, the Fitbit Versa 2 is a really good option for you. So now to get into what I would consider one of the most important parts of a smartwatch or a device in general, the operating system and functionality. The Fitbit Versa 2 runs Fitbit's own Fitbit OS. How many times can I say Fitbit in one sentence? And the software is extremely well designed and very practical. With a smartwatch, you don't want a ton of stuff cluttering up your screen, and you want everything to be easy to find at the snap of a finger. So Fitbit really took that into mind, and everything is extremely accessible and easy to locate. You can simply swipe down to see various notifications from your phone, swipe left to see all of your apps and start an exercise, and swipe up to see all of your fitness data. There are a few apps that come pre-installed on the device, like Pandora, Starbucks, I believe Spotify, and an app called Deezer. If any of these are apps that you don't need, you can uninstall them from the Fitbit app on your phone. But if you're like me and you are a Spotify listener, you can keep the Spotify app on there and rearrange it so that it's closer to the main screen, so that way you can easily get to it and control the music playback from your watch. I'm not a big runner, but I know that a lot of runners like to keep their phones tucked away in maybe a side shorts pocket or something like that. If you have your Spotify pulled up on your watch, it's as simple, just pull up your watch and skip the song if you're wanting to change the song you're listening to. So that way you don't have to be fumbling to get your phone out of your pocket or something like that. And yes, I know that plenty of runners actually don't even run with their phone, but with this watch, you will have to have your phone on you. And this is what I would consider the big disadvantage to getting a smartwatch like the Versa 2. 2. All of Apple's Apple Watches, and I believe most of the Galaxy watches, have GPS built into them. So if you wanted to track a run or track a ride and upload it onto Strava or something like that, you could simply track it with your smartwatch. However, the Versa 2 does not have GPS built in. So before you go on your run or your ride, you will have to sync your phone with your smartwatch, because the smartwatch will be simply using the GPS on your phone through the Fitbit app. I personally have not found this to be that big of an issue because I primarily use the Versa 2 for cycling. And even if I wasn't tracking, I would have my phone on me anyways because I will be going further distances, further away from home, and there's more potential for falls or emergency situations. My guess is that this is likely how Fitbit was able to decrease the price so drastically on this device, since the build quality is absolutely phenomenal and the UI is so clean. And as I mentioned before, you do get notifications on this, so it does have the basic smartphone functionality. Any notification that you get from your phone will come in on your watch, and you can customize which apps you get notifications from on your watch. I personally just have notifications enabled for text messages and phone calls, just because I don't want my smartwatch constantly vibrating every time I get an email or YouTube notification or any other notification. But obviously that is all up to personal preference. So on the topic of software, I would say the biggest piece of Fitbit software that you will be interacting with when you have this device is the Fitbit mobile app. And just like the actual watch's UI, the Fitbit mobile app I think is incredibly well designed and easy to navigate. On the Fitbit mobile app, you get the basic watch customization features, such as switching out your watch face, what kind of units certain measurements are measured in, as well as installing new apps and removing the pre-installed ones, as I mentioned before. Also in the app, you can determine what a long hold on the one button does, like what functionality it serves. For example, skipping a song or calling somebody or something like that. Aside from the basic customization, the app's main purpose is to show you a lot more detail on the statistics that it collects throughout your day. Some of your daily stats can be seen on your watch, such as your current heart rate or your steps for the day. However, the app provides much more nuanced statistics for you to see, such as your cardio fitness, your calories burned for that day, your floors ascended or descended for that day, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Not to mention there's literally a subscription you can pay for that gives you even more statistics. At first I was a little bit skeptical of there being a paid subscription for Fitbit, because if you just purchased a $150 smartwatch, the last thing you'd want is for there to be a monthly subscription piled on top of that. But I'm not even entirely sure how they're even getting more stats to show with this paid version, because the free version has plenty more stats than the average person will even need. Now, I'm not going to spend this video walking through every single statistic step by step, but I'm going to briefly discuss the few features that I find really cool and helpful. To start off, my favorite feature on this as of right now is the sleep tracking feature. Essentially, when you wake up in the morning and you sync your phone to your watch, it'll give you an evaluation of that night's sleep. It'll show you what time exactly you fell asleep based on when your heart rate drops and what time you woke up. It'll also show you what percentage of that was in deep sleep, what percent was in REM sleep, and what percent was in light sleep, as well as what percent of that you were actually awake during, which might be more than you think. And then it takes all of that data into mind and gives you a sleep score ranging from 1 to 100. Although I will say the sleep score system might be a little bit inaccurate, just because, first of all, it's a made-up metric. Second of all, one day I might wake up feeling incredibly well rested and it gives me maybe a low 70, and then the next day I wake up with a headache and I don't feel great and it gives me a high 80. But most of the time I have found the number to be relatively accurate, and it isn't entirely based on how much sleep you're getting. Obviously you're going to get a higher score if you get 9 hours compared to maybe 6 hours, but even if you get 6 hours of sleep, it will be higher than you expect depending on your sleep quality. And this feature has actually forced me to make some changes in the way I conduct my personal sleep schedule. I haven't made any big drastic changes, but it really makes you realize that if you fall asleep at 11 and wake up at 6, you think you're getting 7 hours, but in reality you're getting maybe just over 6 hours with the amount of awake time that's in there that you don't even remember when you wake up. So in turn, realizing that a 7-hour sleep might actually be more like a 6-hour, 20-minute sleep can actually force you to make some small changes to your sleep schedule. So another feature that I found really useful is the geographic tracking of exercises such as runs, walks, and rides. Now I'm sure this is a feature that pretty much all smartwatches have, but I really like it on the Versa 2 because not only does it give you a map, it also puts your heart rate on the map as well as your speed. So say you go for a bike ride and you have one section where you're going, say, 20 miles an hour, that could be higher up, versus if you're down to like 10 miles an hour or something, that'll be a completely different color because you're going significantly slower. And then for the heart rate one, it's pretty much the same thing, and usually it corresponds to your speed. So when you're going faster, usually you're putting in a little bit more effort, so your heart rate will be elevated, and then you can see that on the map. And the third feature that I find really cool is the calorie tracker. Now, if you've ever heard of the app MyFitnessPal from Under Armour, it's pretty much that exact app just built into the Fitbit app. For those of you that are unfamiliar, it's essentially an app that allows you to log the exact foods that you're eating in order to see whether or not you're eating too much or too little for that day. Now, when comparing these two side by side, they pretty much have the same exact feature set. One cool thing about MyFitnessPal is that when you type in any food, it will have the exact brand and the exact product that you're eating, because they've got a really big database on like plenty of different food products, and Fitbit is the exact same way. I never really encountered a brand where it wasn't in the database. The only issues I ran into was, say, a home cooked meal or something where I kind of had to guess the calorie count for that meal. Now, getting into the final chapter of this video, that is the battery life. Now, this is one of the most important numbers when looking at a tech product, especially one that is mobile and will be on you every single day. So let's break down how the Versa 2 compares to its competition. So on Fitbit's website, they say that the Fitbit Sense, Versa 2, and Versa 3 last at least 6 days without any particularly strenuous use. And as a longtime Versa 2 user, I can confirm that this number is accurate, which is absolutely crazy. And for a quick comparison, the $350 Apple Watch Series 6 lasts up to 18 hours as outlined on Apple's website, and the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 lasts up to 24 hours. That means that the $150 Versa 2 made by Fitbit lasts about 8 times longer than Apple's alternative and 6 times longer than Samsung's alternative. Albeit the Apple Watches and the Galaxy Watches are much more technologically advanced, and their software is better, and pretty much everything about them is more premium. And they all have built-in GPS, so all these things probably come together to determine that battery life number. Either way though, that battery life comparison is absolutely jaw-dropping. It completely blows the really big brand names out of the water. I remember when I first got the watch, I thought that I would be having to plug it in every night, but then I wondered how I would make use of the sleep tracking if I had to charge it every night. But that dilemma in my head slowly disappeared, as after like 3 days of using the watch, it was only at like 50%. So if you want to know when I charge the watch, I charge it every single time I take a shower. So it doesn't get it up to full capacity every time I do that, but if I shower once a day, that gives me about like 20% each shower. So I'm consistently still at a really good battery life number. I will note though, if you do make use of the tracking with the runs and the rides and whatnot, the battery life will decrease significantly because it's constantly being connected to your phone and using the GPS data. On Fitbit's website, they do state that if you do use this feature often, the battery life will be cut down to about 5 days. And if you use the always on display, it will be cut down to right around 3 days. So I hope you enjoyed this comprehensive review on the Fitbit Versa 2. I certainly enjoyed writing the script and making this video for you guys. If you also did enjoy this, feel free to give it a like. It really helps out us here at Top Spec because we're a small channel and we're trying to grow. Anyways, that's about it. I'm Connor and this is Top Spec. We'll see you in the next one.